Hello again everybody, Theo Clarke here, and in this video we're going to be talking about Google Display Ads. Now for me, Google Display Ads are essentially the meta of Google. Now what do I mean by that? Well, Google Display, you can use image and video based creatives, and you can target, whether it be remarketing audiences and cold audiences based on many different things, the many different types of targeting, contextual, behavioral, demographic. There are many different ways to do it. So in that sense that you're using image and video based creatives, and if you are targeting cold, it's very much interruption based marketing. It's very similar to Meta in that sense. Now, I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on Google Display Ads. Okay, people will have, there's so many e-com businesses with really good creatives that are performing very well on Meta, TikTok, and maybe even other platforms, but they're not then leveraging those on the Google Display Network. So let me run you through exactly what the Google Display Network is, how it works, and how you can use different strategies based on your goal. So let's start right at the top here, where we talk about understanding display ad formats. So as I mentioned, you can have image-based ads and video-based ads. Google Display Network is essentially able to target millions of different websites on the Google network. So you'll be familiar with those banner style ads that kind of follow you around. That's the Google Display Network. Now, when would you choose to utilize the display network? Well, it can be dependent on the goal. And here's a few different examples, okay? Initially, I would always use it in an e-com account for remarketing, just to essentially tap into the low-hanging fruit, okay? If people are already visiting your website, set up your Google Analytics tag and you can just remarket to them using the Google ecosystem. So that could be, you can do that on shopping, search, display, YouTube, or even demand gen as well. There's no limitation as to what networks you can remarket on. If people are already visiting your site, why rely solely on either Meta or TikTok or other channels for remarketing when Google is where people come to when they're ready to buy, especially if they've shown intent and landed on your website? So remarketing is extremely important, and I would always start here. If you're able to convert your remarketing GDN campaigns, then that's the opportunity to then start scaling horizontally and start introducing a cold audience to your GDN campaigns. Now, cold is obviously going to be very different to remarketing. Remarketing, people have already shown some kind of intent. When it comes to scaling Google Display Network's top of funnel, that's where you're really going to want to try and leverage the existing data that you have available from Meta and TikTok and take any winning creatives, adjust the format to suit Google Display Ads. Now, what I mean by that is Google Display requires specific dimensions or preferred dimensions for its ads. So you may need to just tweak your Meta and TikTok creatives or any other platforms just to suit fit the right size, but keep the format the same. What I mean by that is make sure the ad itself, whether it be image or video based, is the same, and you're just changing the actual dimensions. Now, that's remarketing. We touched on cold there. Now, I actually have a whole module on Google Display Network inside of the Google Ads Ecom Academy, which will show you essentially how to set up Google Display Network campaigns, how to research and develop creatives, scaling top of funnel GDN campaigns, when to use certain bidding strategies, how to leverage audiences, and all of that. So if you want a more in-depth how-to guide on how to do all of this, search for the Google Ads Ecom Academy on school. But getting back to this, when we're talking about Google Display Ads, as I mentioned, there's many different reasons why you may choose to set them up, but ultimately, if you're already remarketing on the Google Display Network and you want to reach a wider audience, that's when you're going to want to introduce Google Display Network top of funnel. It can be expensive. That's one prerequisite. Okay, so you only really want to come to the Google Display Network if you've got at least £100 or $100 per day to spend on top of funnel. And you need to bear in mind that initially off the bat, it's very unlikely to be profitable in the first sort of 7 to 14 days. But if by the end of the month you're breaking even, that's a very good opportunity to then start to optimize and continue to scale. So top of funnel can be tricky, and it comes down to your targeting. Okay, so when it comes to targeting, the reason this is important is, as I mentioned, Google Display Network can be expensive. You're testing on millions of different websites. So your targeting is your guideline for Google. Okay, this is where you can tell Google what type of people or what audiences you want to target. And there's a few different types, and I'm going to cover these main three here. So you've got contextual targeting, which is targeting people based on website content to ensure that relevance to user interests. Then you have behavioral targeting based on user behavior, including past interactions and preferences, and demographic targeting, which is where you can refine audience using segments by age, gender, and income. So when it comes to scaling, especially with regards to top of funnel, you're going to want to ideally target those who have behaved in a way that shows some kind of intent. So maybe they've searched for search terms that have proven to convert for you on Google. You could target that. You could target your competitors' URLs. You could target those who have landed on your website and make lookalike audiences based on those. So there's a few different ways that you can target. You're just going to make sure that you're targeting people who have shown the greatest intent. I would avoid going after anything kind of interest-based. Demographic targeting you can lean on, but you probably want to do some audience layering and also target demographic, but also people that have shown intent based on kind of what they're searching for, or maybe having visited the website and things like that. So don't go too broad with your targeting. Get proof of concept with the lower hanging fruit, and then try and open up your targeting to expand a little wider. But start there. If you're unable to get those that have shown a bit more intent at more like the middle of the funnel to convert, then I wouldn't go too broad with the top of funnel, because it's going to be a sure way to spend a lot of money. Now, when it comes down to designing effective display ad creatives, like anything, when you're running ads on Meta and TikTok, creative is super, super important these days. So you want to make sure you have a good visual appeal. So that comes down to using high quality images and eye-catching design to attract attention, okay? Especially if it is cold. Remember, if someone is on Google and they're searching for, perhaps they're on a website, you're going to want to make sure that your creatives have a strong visual appeal, because ultimately what we're trying to do is interrupt someone and get them to click on the ad and come through to our website. The next thing is clear messaging and brand consistency. So if you already are converting well on other platforms, you should have a good understanding of the type of messaging that your target audience resonate with. And also you're going to want to make sure that you have, of course, consistency across your brand identity. If your brand colors are yellow and green, don't start using black and red. These are kind of basic things here that I'm going over, but you get the idea. Just make sure the ads are effective. Next, remarketing strategies for display ads. I kind of touched on this already, but I didn't go into the different types of ads that you can create. So you can create dynamic product ads. So you can remarket a particular product to someone based on a landing page that they've landed on your website. So let's assume you sell 10 different products. If someone landed on one particular product page, you can then choose to essentially follow them around the Google Display Network, and on the different Google websites, you can then show them an ad which is of the exact same product that they just saw on your website. Then you have standard remarketing, so essentially just using no dynamic creative. So this could just be a banner or a square image or a video that you've used just to remarket to all of your customers, but not being product specific or not being dynamic in that sense. Okay, so it could be maybe something more from a branding perspective, a generalized ad to kind of get people back. And then you also have sequential remarketing, which is where you can guide users through the funnel with a step-by-step approach. So that could be setting up multiple remarketing campaigns and essentially reintroducing them back into the funnel. Ad placement strategies for display advertising. Managed placements, automated placements, and excluded placements. So placements are going to be very important. You're probably going to want to avoid running any ads on apps, because that's also something that the Display Network covers. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but it's apps and obviously websites on the Google Display Network. So apps, in my opinion, is not a very good placement. You're going to want to exclude certain sites and avoid showing content on those particular locations. Now, you can do the same when it comes to poor performing websites. So you're going to want to analyze where your ads are showing and make any exclusions for websites where the performance is poor, or maybe is just completely irrelevant to the product that you're selling. You can obviously adjust where you place these ads, whether it be placements that you've specifically chosen to show on, so specific websites, or you can let Google essentially choose the placements. And again, it's going to choose the placements based on your targeting when it comes to your targeting strategies and who you're targeting. So you can do a blend of the both. Set up automated placements, and then when you have proof of concept and you know which placements are working well, then you can target specific websites. But you're always going to want to be monitoring the data and leveraging it as much as possible. Then lastly, when it comes to best practices, Again, same for any campaign. Regular optimization is extremely important, A/B testing, and also budget management. So once you do identify what's working well, continue to set up split tests. If you do get a GDN campaign right, this can essentially run for months and be very, very profitable. But the difficult part is getting it to the point where it is performing well. So as I mentioned, always leverage existing data where possible. When it comes to budget management, if you're talking top of funnel specifically, then you're going to want to start about £100 or $100 a day and slowly scale up. As soon as you get proof of concept and you're essentially breaking even, continue to scale the budget further. But just be careful with top of funnel. Remarketing, you can set at any price. You probably want to spend maybe 5 to 10% of your daily budget on Google on remarketing, maybe as a whole. So if you have other remarketing campaigns, then just review what you're spending and just allocate a reasonable portion to the budget on your display ads. But ultimately, top of funnel, if you can get it right, is very, very effective. It's just kind of difficult to do so. But like I say, if you can get it right, you're essentially introducing a whole nother channel or a whole nother audience that you may not already be targeting on Meta and TikTok, especially if you've already got creatives that are working well. So I always highly recommend that even if you don't want to run GDN cold, at least set up a remarketing ecosystem and you compare these campaigns with other types. So hopefully you found this video useful and you enjoyed the content. More videos coming soon.